All right, guys, I'm headed offshore again with, and if you guys are watching my channel, I'm pretty sure you know who this guy is, Mr. Benny Ortiz. If you don't know who he is, I'll let you know. Benny is like one of the pioneers, I would say, of slow pitch jigging here in the United States. He was doing it before anybody was doing it. If you think it's frustrating getting slow pitch tackle here now, you should imagine when you started doing it.
It was a lot different 7 years ago. It was a lot different.
So now, I mean, like, we do have tackle shops that are starting to stock slow pitch jigs on the regular and the rods and stuff like that, so we can really get it. And there is more information available to us than whenever you started. What was it, like 8 years?
Yeah, it was about 7, 8 years ago when I first started slow pitch jigging, and most of the information was all from Japan. So, and it was all in Japanese. There was no shops in the US that were stocking the stuff, so it was a very expensive game of trial and error.
Yeah, you buy the wrong stuff and then
Yep.
having to figure it out. It's nice to have somebody who's figured it out for you and be able to get that information.
It's a lot better now, especially with the information that you guys are putting out. So it's a good environment for this. Break.
So we started out in a few spots in under 300 feet of water, and really, you know, we're targeting bottom fish when we go out. Slow pitch jigging is deadly when it comes to bottom fish, and really that's what it's designed to do. Granted, you can catch pelagics and the toothy critters, and there are some tactics and techniques that you could use to do that, but as far as what we set out for this day was, we're looking for grouper, we're looking for snapper on the bottom, and we start out in under 300 feet of water, and we had a couple nice hookups right off the get-go.
Boys, another keeper this one. Almaco. Still mark bottom, live bottom.
There we go. Benny's on.
Let's go.
Boy. What do you got? Hey. Oh, scamp!
It's a little baby scamp.
Yeah.
It's alright. These guys have to be 20 inches, so I think he's gonna go home.
Going back.
Going home.
Yellow with red, soft bottom. Right?
Yeah, actually blue and there he is. You got one? Got one. All right. That's keeper. That's probably a keeper mutton or a keeper something. Keeper something. Feels good, Johnny?
Guys, if we want to narrow it down, this is a keeper something.
Yeah, keeper something.
All right, guys, so we're in about 300 feet of water. We're off of Boynton Beach here in South Florida, and I get a lot of questions almost daily, you know, about can you make a video about proper technique, what technique should I use? You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of folks think that, you know, that the rod does everything, and I just want people to know that that's not really the case. You know, it's actually a very active style of fishing. First of all, you want to stay as vertical as possible, right? Notice that the butt end of the rod is under my forearm, right? That lets me use it as a lever. So if you can see, very slow, even recoil of the rod. You know, and you can change it up. You can go faster, you can go slower. You always want to keep bottom contact, like I'm doing right now. Get that slack out quick. And you really are the person who manipulates the jig, right? A lot of folks have the rod under their arm like this, and they think you're just making these little turns to get the rod to move. That's not really going to help you. You know, you really want to move the rod in the water. Let that rod slowly unload. That's what's going to flick the jig to the side, and it's going to come down and wobble. You're going to get 90% of your bites on the fall.
Marking.
You'll see how I've changed my handle turns. I'll go a quarter turn, sometimes I'll go a full turn. Always on the up, very rarely on the down. Because you don't want to reel that slack out. You reel the slack out when the jig's supposed to be falling, then doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Oop, got bit.
Yep.
Let's see if he's still there.
You see that Benny dropped back down because he knew he's there.
Let's see if he bites again. Might have scared him off. Oh, got a little guy.
Just like that, huh?
Just like that. Let's see. Oh,
there he is.
Little
mangrove.
Let this guy go. That's the second little mangrove that I've caught today, and both of them, he's going back down. Both of them coughed up a bunch of shrimp, so it's like they're keyed into something like that today.
We decided to go out for a deep drop for a little bit, and something interesting is that I was trying out the new Daiwa Seaborg 200. I had that match with the Johnny Jigs Pro Jigger Power 4, and it was very interesting to be out there with an electric reel instead of the manual crank. And now I know how some of you guys are, and you're like, no, you gotta crank manually and this and that. But let me tell you, when I was watching Benny and puffing and reeling up, you know, from deep water, and I'm just pushing a button and this thing is reeling up, it was fantastic because I was not tired. I was able to reel up and drop again without overexerting myself, and it was really, it's an ideal setup because if you look, I have this like almost like a satchel around me, and it's a lithium ion battery pack. So I'm completely mobile. I can move freely around the boat without being glued to, you know, a battery pack with alligator clamps and stuff like that. And I was able to get down in 900 feet of water with 10-pound test on the 200 Seaborg. Now,
Marking good fish right now.
There you go.
Yeah, you do. Marking fish. Nice. On the screen.
I got him on.
now here's a little bit of nugget of information that I'm going to share with you guys that I had to figure out the hard way by spending money. If you're going to get the Seaborg, I would go with the 300 if you plan on fishing 800 plus feet and you want to jig. I found myself having very little line left on the Seaborg 200, even with the 10-pound test in 800 to 900 feet of water, and I wish I had something just a little bit bigger. On the other hand though, the 7-foot Pro Jigger Power 4 was perfect. I like the fact that I have that 7 foot on the rod and I'm able to really get a long pitch on the jig, because for the most part, really at that depth, you're just pulling the scope out of your line. Now you'll find it much easier to use a shorter rod, but the thing is that you're not actually moving the jig like you think you are. You're gonna have this big scope in your line and you're not gonna actually move the jig the way you think you are. By having a longer rod, yes, it is more work, but you're gonna actually move the jig through the water.
All right, guys, we are about 300 feet of water. We have a really low current day. So we're able to use, I'm down to about 250 gram jig. Johnny, what jig you got on?
200 grams.
200 grams. So we're getting down pretty easy. Just kind of altering our shapes, trying to see what the fish are keyed into. But overall, today's been really good for keeping up and down. Right now, there are massive marks on the screen from about 5 feet up to 15 feet up. So what we're gonna do is count our handle turns here. Each turn's about 3 feet, right? So we know the fish in the first 20 feet of water, we don't want to be more than about 6 cranks up. Otherwise we're outside of there. Well, where they are. Let's always keep checking bottom. You gotta mix up your cadence. These are just kind of traditional movements. Third turns, quarter turns. Then you can speed your cadence up. Check bottom. Change your actions maybe to what they call more of a punchier action. What that'll do is it'll make the jig kind of swim long ways in the water. Most important thing though is just keep contact with the bottom. Stay as vertical as possible. And really know where that jig is at all times. Still really good marks on the bottom. Should just be a matter of time before we get a bite. A lot of people will ask me, you know, how do you fish from a drifting boat? Right now we're free drifting. You can see my line's kind of scoping a little bit away from the boat. Really what you want to do is you want to pull in the direction of your drift. What that'll do is it'll get the jig to go up in the water and then fall, up and fall. So sometimes you can get a little scoped, still kind of maximize the amount of time that you're on the bottom. Ideally though, you do want to be straight up and down.
So I've been asked about what am I looking for on my screen, or what spots am I looking for when I'm out there slow pitch jigging. And essentially I'm looking for structure. You know, I'm looking for good bottom. The bigger the structure, the better. But let's be real, you know, a lot of our bottom fishing and reefs are overfished. So I really look for like little nuggets that are out in the 100 to 400 foot range. And this guy, Lee Shepard, actually builds these artificial reefs. They call him the Reef Man because these structures that he builds will protect game fish, give them a safe haven, you know, as they get bigger. And the reefs are really cool looking. And if you look at, you know, it's almost like a dome shape. And that is exactly what I'm looking for on my screen. So, you know, I've spent a lot of years, you know, out in the water looking at my screen and dialing in numbers and trying to find, you know, spots that look exactly like what Lee has. So as far as like giving out my numbers, those are sacred to me. There's a lot of numbers that are common knowledge that, you know, everybody has them. They're public numbers that are still great to fish. It depends on what time of the day and what time of the week you fish them, and they're still great to fish. But whenever you find these little nuggets that look just like the structures that Lee makes, those are the ones that you want to fish. So Lee, salute to you, man, for making these things super cool what you've done for our fishery. awesome day, and I always learn so much whenever I'm out fishing with these guys. Being just an excellent captain and really understanding what it takes to get on fish for a guy who loves to slow fish jig, and then as well as fishing with such a skilled angler as Benny Ortiz. There's a reason why, you know, Benny has the notoriety that he has when it comes to slow pitch jigging. He's been doing it longer than anyone here in the US, as well as he has a very good understanding of the gear and the tackle and what it takes to really reel in that fish of a lifetime and be prepared to catch that fish of a lifetime every time. Fellas, thank you so much for taking me fishing. Had a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You could also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget, jig on.